Over the past week or so, there's been a lot of stuff that fans haven't liked. But fans being upset with NASCAR is not something that's new. But what is kind of new is just how much disapproval the drivers are giving NASCAR leadership right now. You know, they had the news that was coming out about the next-gen car and how safety concerns might have been a problem. Drivers talked a bit about it, but not too much. But over the past couple years, they've been talking more and more outspokenly about NASCAR. And this past weekend with the announcement of the Atlanta reconfiguration, they went full force. They went all out saying how NASCAR doesn't listen to them, how NASCAR doesn't take what they say into account, or if they do, not that much, and basically saying that NASCAR is disregarding the competition right now. Like I said, this really isn't something new. NASCAR drivers have always, for some reason or another, had something that they're more or less upset with, whether it's restrictor plate racing, whether it's NASCAR officiating, you name it. But it does seem like this time is a little bit different. It seems like this time the drivers have a lot more anger that has been built up over time, coming out and just saying what they want to say. Now, to start off, we got to be real. This is probably mostly because of the Atlanta repave and reconfiguration. It hasn't been really much of a question in the last year that Atlanta needs to be repaved, but the reconfiguration is something drivers are livid with. And it's twofold, I think, with this. One is the drivers weren't consulted, or at least most of them weren't. Instead, they use simulations on iRacing, which many of the drivers do not like. Now, I'm not going to talk about how mad the drivers are right now without actually leaving some quotes of what they said. So listen here to what a few of the drivers had to say.
It's just a broken down process, man. That's what's so frustrating, is that the process is just broken. You know, people, and I look at a lot of the responses and they're just like, well, why should they listen to y'all? You're always going to look out for what your best agenda is. The thing is, the drivers, we just tell us the agenda. Do you want speedway racing here? Okay, we don't like it, but here's what you need to do to get there. We'll help you accomplish that. Just tell us the goal. You know, don't mix the message by saying, oh, you're gonna see something you've never seen, and they show, you know, a clip of iRacing cars racing in a pack, but yet you want your surface to match the old. Like that's counterintuitive. You can't make it narrower and super speedway. Those two things don't match up. So again, I think we could help. We're an asset. You know, we are the biggest asset that NASCAR, these tracks, could have if they just tell us their goals. We may not agree with the goal, but we can help them get to where they want to go.
Have you heard anything about that Talladega crash test last week? And
I have not.
When do you start do you start pressing NASCAR for data on safety and that car?
Yeah, you know, the only thing, you know, I think, you know, as we sat in the drivers meeting that NASCAR had with us to show us everything, I think that the most frustrating part of the whole process is the fact that the safety piece to the drivers and the conversation with the drivers, which was asked for by the drivers, was had at the very end of everything. And you know, I think as you look at that, you know, I think it's just, you know, I think the guys driving the cars are owed at least the respect enough to at least be a part of the process of what's going on. But, you know, I think it's, you know, that and the racetrack, and, you know, I think everybody's a little bit frustrated with just how all that's been handled.
Look, they're using Dr. Radin, who did the Earnhardt investigation. I mean, they're using people that I think people respect, right? So I guess when do you...
Yeah, but you have to remember, Bob, that most everybody who races in this deal now doesn't know who Dr. Radin is and doesn't know much about Dale Earnhardt's wreck. That's the part you got to remember. You got to remember that this is a whole new generation of guys that's not, you know, been privy to who the doctor was in Dale Earnhardt's wreck. So, you know, it's seeing NASCAR's presentation and the things that they've done with the car is very impressive, and you know, the data and all the things that go with that is very impressive in how they lay the crashes out and the simulation that they have. I think it's just when the drivers were a part of the process, you know, is why everybody's a little bit frustrated with that. So, and here we are, you know, we're supposed to go to Bristol in a month with our car to do a tire test and can't get chassis.
The other part is that Atlanta is one of the drivers' favorite tracks. You can always look around on the lanes, you can drive high, low, in the middle. We saw it on full display this past weekend. No matter what series it is, you can really have a racy track with Atlanta. But with them changing this, I can understand the drivers being pretty pissed. But you know, this isn't something that I think, like I said before, has just sprung up out of nowhere. I think this is something that's built up over time. You can look back as far as 2014 and 2015, when NASCAR would be doing tests for packages, for instance, at Michigan. In 2014, when they did the 2015 test, the drivers really liked the higher horsepower, low downforce. What did NASCAR do? They took horsepower away with the tapered spacer to pretty much what we have today in the 750 horsepower package. Now, the drivers have spoken very, very clearly that they're not fans of the 550 horsepower package and the high downforce and drag package. They're not happy with it. But NASCAR seems to almost be doubling down, taking a lot of the driver agency during a race away from them, which is just going to add another layer of frustration to an already frustrated base of drivers. Then you have the playoff format. I know this is cliche to say, and I know that guys like Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott aren't going to be really ragging on this, seeing how they've won championships recently, but you look at the stuff that Kevin Harvick has said, how these championships aren't the same as the ones that Petty and Earnhardt won. That's a damning assessment from one of the oldest drivers in the field, one of the elder statesmen of the sport. When you have a person who is probably one of the leaders of the garage going out and saying this, you, I think, have a bigger problem, because that's going to probably influence a lot of the younger drivers as well and make this problem last longer than it should. Speaking of younger drivers, a lot of the older drivers have been having problems too with the fact that they just have a lack of respect, it seems like. When you look at the Knoxville craziness we had this past weekend, you can see a lot of the older or more experienced drivers are not happy with the way that they were raced or the way that the competition raced during that event. And then you add on top of that the safety concerns, the fact that NASCAR officiating has put NASCAR's drivers at risk multiple times this year when they don't have to be. You can understand that drivers are going to be pretty frustrated knowing and probably think that NASCAR doesn't give a damn about them. And then you add that they're not really listening to what they have to say. I can understand the drivers feeling pretty mad about this. And as my buddy Eric Estep said in his video, drivers have the public support over NASCAR leadership. I'm sorry. As much as I like guys like Mike Helton, I'm going to care more what Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick has to say about the racing on the track. I'm going to care more what Kyle Larson has to say about it than I am about a guy in a suit and tie. Because those are the guys who are putting on the races every week. These are the guys who are putting on the competition for us. And these are the guys who have to experience this firsthand and put their lives on the line for our entertainment. So I think right now the big question is this a blip? Or is this the start of something a lot more serious for NASCAR that they need to get ahead of? And also, what can be done with it? I personally think that this is not as much a long-term problem that's going to split NASCAR apart like the split, but I don't think it's a blip either. So what can NASCAR do to kind of mend this divide right now? Well, they can do the unlikely and swallow their pride and take some advice and lessons from the drivers, listen to them, and take what they have into account with decision making. That's something that I think right away could fix a lot of stuff. Another option is that the quieter, younger drivers who are going to be making up a majority of the future of this sport need to speak up and speak out. Because these older drivers, NASCAR can probably deal with them ripping on them for another 2 or 3 years before they're out. But if you get somebody like a Chase Elliott, a William Byron, Alex Bowman, you get somebody like a Cole Custer, a Chase Briscoe, guys who might be in the sport for another 15 to 20 years as drivers, to come out and just outright say, hey, this is not right, I think NASCAR would actually listen more, simply because that right there is their long-term business model in jeopardy. If it is a blip, it might just be a growing pain that'll pass with the next-gen car. There's a lot of frustration, I think, in the industry right now with the way that the next-gen car is being developed. and also how it's being produced and given to the teams. So maybe when a lot of this stuff simmers down and we go into 2022 and we get more stable over time, maybe these kind of things will go away. That's a good hope. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think this is going to be a problem that NASCAR is going to have to deal with for the next 3 or 4 years, and how they handle this will influence the way the sport goes. You could see a lot of drivers retire early and go somewhere else. I mean, Kyle Larson doesn't have to sit here and go full throttle at intermediate tracks. If he wanted to, he could make plenty of money winning plenty of races in dirt. He proved it last year. So I have to say, I am a bit concerned as a fan seeing how many drivers are saying this, but at the same time, I'm happy because I think that over time, the drivers are going to take a little bit more control. I know a lot of people have talked about a driver union or a driver council, but NASCAR probably won't listen to that or won't let that happen. So I don't think that's going to be in the cards. But what I do think is that the status quo needs to be changed. Again, I don't know as much as these guys do. I just want to say that right now. I do not know as much as the guys in the suits and ties. I don't know as much as the guys who are in the media center every week, and I certainly don't know as much as the drivers do. But I will say that if there's anybody I, as a fan, as somebody who wants to get into the sport, is going to trust with what the cars should do, what tracks should do, what they should do in general in the sport, I'm going to trust the guys and girls who are going into these cars every week and actually racing them. With that, I want to pass this on to you. What do you think NASCAR and the drivers should do moving forward? Do you think they should make a union, a drivers' council? Do you think NASCAR's in the right, or do you think the drivers are completely in the right? There's so much to unpack here. Please leave a comment down below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content, share this video, and if you really like it, you can join the channel memberships option. So until next time, have a good one.